Welcome to It Takes Two. I'm Blair.
I'm Chris.
And today we'll be talking about Couples Therapy, Season 4, Episode 13.
I need you to subscribe, like, share, comment, all the above. Hopefully y'all are enjoying the series. So far, I still feel like things are still waiting to pick up. Right now, we still learning how each couple operate within their relationship. So I'm looking forward to it. You ready, Blair?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
So we start with Rod and Allison.
Yeah.
She learned that she's expecting more than she's getting. Orna makes the distinction that she doesn't really long for it, but you're just kind of expecting things from him that you kind of not necessarily, like you don't necessarily want. And it sets him up for failure. And Orna tells her that is a toxic dynamic.
Yeah.
Rod asks what she expects, and Allison says that she doesn't know what she wants or even what she's missing. He chooses to avoid these conversations because it's difficult. There's a lot of pressure on him, even when talking about finances, and she always delivers things with a jab. She's trying to chime in, asking what he means when he says a jab, but she's sounding angry, and Orna says, you need to do something with your demeanor to be more inviting if you want the conversation to continue, essentially. And he points out that she triggers quickly, but he saw what Orna did, and she tells him, you can do the same thing. Allison wants to tackle their issues head on, and so the first thing they talk about is finances. He says, essentially, we need more income, but we know that's not going to happen. She apparently got her eyes checked, spent $700, and she's mad now because he brought this up as a way for them to maybe save money. She says, I only get this done once a year. We know what's coming up, so I'm not going to not get my eyes checked because it's $700. And then she goes into asking him why he didn't bring it up sooner if it was such an issue. She talks about how she's taken a lot of time to be with their daughter, but they lost a lot of money when she was at home instead of working. Now they're trying to play catch up. And he says, well, to me, it sounds like you regret the last decade, which is pretty much how old the daughter is. Yeah. Allison says him saying that is condescending. She's frustrated. It's the same dialogue, and it is just annoying her up to this point. And she says that it just hurts that this is the reality of their situation. She says she doesn't know what she's saying. She just thinks he can apply himself. Maybe that's who he is, and she's just anxious and angry of his performance. She's also angry at herself because she took so much time off. So Orna stops him because he tries to chime in, but she stops him to just acknowledge what you heard. Like, she's struggling right now. He hears what she said. He heard it, but he didn't acknowledge it at first. He talks about how they have an awesome kid. She's an amazing mother. And Orna tells her that's great, but that's not the point.
Here's the thing, right? While we was watching it live, I paused it and I was like, I understand her 100% now, right? And even my wife at the time, she was like, well, help me. Because you got to get past all that rough exterior to really get to what she's really saying, right? And I really do think that in the moment when they had their child, it was a great decision that I'm going to stay home and raise my child and raise our child, right? And she is a great mother based on what the father said, based on what Rod said. I'm just going by what he said, right? But is that enough? And what may have been a good decision in the moment, we are a decade later into the process, and it's almost as if you don't want to say out your mouth, I regret that decision, because you actually see the fruit of your decision. You see
a person,
right? And you don't want to regret all the hard work you instilled into your child, because I'm sure that your child hopefully will be able to contribute to society based on how you raised them.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? But it's kind of hard for her to basically say, what she eventually says, you know what, I shouldn't have took that much time off work, right? Because whenever we talk about finances and things of that nature, you're having a discussion about me when it comes to finances, knowing that I can't contribute, and knowing that, hey, in order for more money to come in, you gonna have to make it.
Right.
So are you telling me in this discussion, that's why I wonder how are these discussions going? Because I do believe it is not fair that if she gets one exam a year with her eyes, and you know that it's $700 a year, not a month, you get what I'm saying? That they should do a better job at budgeting to, like, hey, get your eyes checked, because you don't want her to be at home depressed and blind.
Right.
You do. You get what I'm saying? So I wonder, what is the source of how are they having the conversation when it comes to finances, because at the same time she wants to feel like she's an equal contributor to the household, but at the same time she knows she's not, because every time we have a conversation about finances, you telling me what I can't do.
Yeah.
And I can't help. You get what I'm saying? What are your thoughts based on what you heard?
I hear what you're saying, and I can appreciate her perspective of basically just saying that we're in this situation. There's really nothing I can do to change it, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Right. But I also think when it comes to her, she's the one who wants to have the conversations as well. She brought up the fact, I want to talk about and address our issues head on. Mm-hmm. So they picked finances, and here she is getting upset because she can't do anything to change their finances.
Yeah.
So not to say they shouldn't talk about finances, because they, have to, but I'm just wondering, is she finding things to talk about to where she knows she can't have an impact, because the part of that frustrates her is that she can't do anything about it? Like, is she bringing it up because I'm mad about how I'm not working, and so because I'm not working, let's talk about finances? But it's like a cycle that keeps going back and forth, because it's just like, you want to discuss things that you have no control over. And maybe she is struggling with the lack of control in her household. Maybe, when it comes to walking the dog, you need to walk the dog, you need to do this, because she's feeling lost in her life, And the other thing I think too is that she might need to go back to work. I think that maybe for some mothers or some people, it might sound bad to say being a mom is unfulfilling in different ways, but maybe it was fulfilling in the time where the child was super needy of her, of like her body, her time, her energy. And now the child is 10 years old and is a lot more independent. Maybe she's finding herself sitting around a lot more, thinking a lot more. The child's in school, probably other extracurricular activities, and she doesn't feel that like the child needs her in that same way. So she wants to give something of herself to it fully. She could give of herself of her marriage in a healthier way. You know what I'm saying? But it sounds like she needs like a task, like something to do, something to put her energy into. So.
And that's the thing about it. It's funny you said energy, because it's very, these two examples have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah.
I was looking at pit bulls, right? I'm not getting a pit bull. I'm not even a big fan of dogs, but I think pit bulls as a puppy is the best looking dog, right?
Very cute.
And I was listening to this owner talking about how he trained his pit bulls, right? And he was basically saying you want to basically train the aggression out of them, and also it have to do with their genetics. It have to do with the DNA of how they bred and things like that. And he said you want to train the aggression out of them while at the same time keeping their character trait of being a workhorse. He said pit bulls want to work. They want to basically give off that energy. They want to basically, they don't want that energy all stored up in them, right? And I don't think she's not the type to want to be like basically holed up in the house all day.
Right.
She comes off as someone that has a lot of energy. Now, I'm not comparing her to a dog, but I just think like she knows that like, hey, I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of opinions. I can contribute more than what I'm contributing right now to like society as a whole. But I wonder, which leads to regret. I wonder if she feels like because she's been away from the workforce for so long, how does it look, basically that gap in your resume of not working, and how would it come to like you getting back into working, and not only just working but getting to what she's interested in, her passions and things
which
like
is
that.
The fashion industry,
exactly.
Which can be pretty tough.
It can be pretty tough, especially if you take that long of a break, because they are bringing new people in almost like through like the pipeline every year, and so like I think there's that. I also think Rod, I think they have a certain language that they speak in their house, which is not English, right? And Rod is not soft enough in the marriage, and I'm not blaming him. He's not soft enough in the marriage because it didn't call for softness because of how they talk to each other. Remember in the first episode, she was like, "Are y'all arguing?"
Yeah.
And definitely they were like, "No, this is how we talk," right? I don't think there is enough compliments of how good of a mother she is and how much of a sacrifice she made to make her not regret her decisions, right? It took Orna to basically stop him for what he was about to say, but did you hear what she said?
Yeah.
Can you acknowledge what she said? Like, and of course it comes off as, of course you're a good mother. of course you may feel that, but if that other person never say it as often to basically make you feel like the decision you made a decade ago was a great decision, then it could kind of get taken for granted in like certain ways, without you even knowing that you're taking that person for granted.
Yeah, but I think in this instance, when he was going on to compliment her, I think that was frustrating her more, because that's not where her frustrations lie.
Yeah.
And I think that, like what Orna was saying to him, you're kind of missing the point, because at this moment, and I think that's also a thing of knowing your partner, and your partner changes all the time. So it's a constant learning of each other, but also knowing what they need in that moment. She didn't need you're a good mom, you're doing great. No, she needed something to hear about how she can contribute, or not saying that y'all need to cut back knowing she can't cut back. Like, she just needed your acknowledgement and your support, but not a pat on the head, essentially.
Yeah. And also,
but it can be hard, because like she said, she don't even know what she wants, which is frustrating.
And also, you gotta understand, man, New York City the state of New York plays a big part in this. If you don't love this city, the city will not love you back. You get what I'm saying? So New York is not a cheap place to live. So it's the fact that they need to budget more, or they need to make more money because it's expensive to live there, and it's like more money's not coming in, so we got to cut back. But it is what it is. We will come back to them.
So Orna talks to her colleagues and notices that Mondo is saying more than Kyle in their sessions. Kyle seems to be just kind of have always been like in a lonely, out of sync place. People outside of him having experiences that he doesn't necessarily connect to. Kyle talks about how his grandparents were deaf. His mother took care of the family, the home. His mom married his dad, and his dad was abusive.
Yeah.
He saw his mom covered in blood once, and he didn't really connect that it was a situation that happened between him and his dad. A social worker asked him if he ever saw his mom cry, and he had to ask what color are tears supposed to be, and his mom and his sister said clear, and he was like, I only saw red. So he didn't know what was happening, the time it was happening, but his mom ended up marrying his stepdad, and then his stepdad packed up and left. After that, he started thinking that things were his fault. He required hearing aids, he required braces, and his dad would complain about paying $35 of child support every 2 weeks. And Mondo tells him it's not your present, and it hurts him to see Kyle question his worthiness in the present, because that's not who or where you are at this point in life.
Yeah. To start off from the top, did you have a problem when Orna pointed out that Kyle's not really talking that much, or did you notice it?
I noticed it, because I feel like in a lot of these couples, like there's a dynamic where the other person kind of speaks for the other one. And I felt like in this situation, I think Kyle did speak up and was just saying like, oh no, I was just listening to him. Or was it this, or it might've been a different conversation, where Kyle was saying, oh, I was just listening. And Orna was kind of pulling him to like speak more of his experiences and things like that. Yeah. So I think that it can be a habit of allowing the other person to just kind of speak freely, and you just like waiting your turn or sitting back. But I think it was good for her to call him in to say, yes, Mondo has his experiences and his perception of things, but so do you. So you need to make sure that you get out what it is that you're experiencing as well. Not to say that he wouldn't have, but I think that because sometimes you're so intent on listening to the other person, that your train of thought kind of follows the path of the other person, and you're not really getting out there and putting ahead of the train necessarily what it is that's on the forefront of your mind.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a little deeper dive on this, and sometimes you hurt the person that you love the most, right? Because there's a comfortability there. There's as weird as it may sound, there's a trust there, because you kind of know what to expect from someone you know and love, compared to hurting a complete stranger, and then you can potentially lose your life, right? And when I heard this story, the only person I could think of is his mom, because I'm like, in some ways, she indirectly abused him by not giving him the proper treatment when he was deaf. Right? Which kind of made me go, but your parents was deaf, right? He said that his
grandparents, her mom's parents.
Exactly.
Yeah, his mom's.
Right? But your parents was deaf, and you took care of them, right? Which kind of let me go through the puzzle of, if is one of the reasons why you wasn't able, or didn't want to acknowledge that he was deaf and wanted to give him the proper training and basically the proper resources was because of the person you was with. Because you hear Kyle basically said, like, my dad talk about all the money he got spent on a hearing aid. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to give me braces. So I wonder if it was just a ripple effect of maybe it's not so much that you didn't want to give him the resources, but because she was being abused for whatever reason, there's no excuse for it, that he wasn't able to get the proper resources, which by domino effect, he got abused. You know what I mean? So it's like, and when I say abused, I don't necessarily mean like he was hit on, but he wasn't given the resources to flourish at the time that he was a child. Yeah. Right? Purposely. Yeah. Dude, you get what I'm saying? Not because they didn't know. He was deaf, and basically, like, I'm not gonna have a deaf boy. Right. Even though you got deaf parents. Like it's something weird about that. And I don't know what was her thinking. Like I said, she was always in distress based on Kyle's story about, you know, he don't even know what tears look like. Yeah. You know what I mean? He always saw red. So this give us a nice POV of how Kyle thinks. I think I'm not saying that he's repeating the actions of his father in the sense of just getting up and leaving, and how he just want to be open and not be contained. He want to have the freedom to not be contained. Basically, he want to have the freedom to get up and leave. I don't want to go so far, but I'm happy that we got to know Kyle a little bit beyond just his selfish desires of just wanting that he don't want a monogamous relationship, that he just wants more than that. So I'm happy we got some background on him.
And I think I'm wondering which a lot of things in our past drives us. And when Mondo was talking about how it hurts him to see Kyle question his worthiness in the present, it's just a question. I don't know, you know, if it's true or not, but I'm wondering if Kyle's want to be open and to explore all these energies with all these strangers comes from a place of feeling unworthy, of, wow, somebody's paying me attention, someone is interested in me, like somebody wants to be physical with me and wants to have this experience with me. When coming up, he was lonely, ostracized, couldn't participate because of his hearing limitations. And now that he's in a space to where, like, people are interacting with him and wanting him, he's like, why would I not want to be a part of this? Like, this makes me feel good. Like, this makes me feel like somebody, you know?
So in that by itself, Mondo's not enough?
Like, I'm thinking that because I think that I would say yes. I would say Mondo wasn't enough. I think that he wants to experience it from more than one person. He wants to be wanted. Okay. You know?
I don't know if I agree with that 100%. I lean more towards your side. I'll probably go like, 65, 45 or 65, 35 rather. It's something he said he don't want to be contained. And there's something about that makes me go, you just want the freedom to get up and leave. Like how your daddy did. You know what I mean? But, this is still the early part of the season. Hopefully we get to know more about them.
So we move on to Jessica and Boris. Boris said that they made their lives harder by the decisions that they made.
Hold on, stop right there. They.
Yes.
Who's they? We're not doing like who's they? It's like because at the same time, while you are saying that the reason why y'all lives is harder based on the decisions that they made, all I've been hearing throughout the session so far, or these sessions, is you basically pointing to her. Yeah. She buys expensive tomatoes. Right. You get what I'm saying? So now you're saying they made. So when it comes to an actual fault that may include you, it's they.
It's we as a couple.
Yeah. It's we as a couple. Mm-hmm. But when it's mistakes that she solely makes, it's her. Right. It's no longer we. But okay, I'm hearing you, Boris.
Yeah. Well, he says that he's clinically depressed due to multiple failures, trying to find a place to call home. And Jessica says she's just tired of talking about this. He assumes that she can't understand or change, and she can provide understanding and solutions. Yeah. He tells her he needs acknowledgement more than understanding, and you just can't fake feelings. Like, he wants to feel her feeling where he's coming from. No. Instead of gritting her teeth through his complaining, essentially.
This is, and I'm not trained as a therapist, I'm just telling you my opinion. This is manipulation right here. What did he say right here? He said that he needs acknowledgement more than understanding. What do you mean? I'm trying to understand you, right? I can't acknowledge something that I don't understand.
Yeah.
So by me actually trying to understand, you get frustrated, right? But at the same time, you want me to feel where you're coming from. Basically, whenever you have a feeling, you just want me to feel with you.
Yeah.
That makes no sense for me, at least. But okay, I hear you, Boris.
So Jessica's crying. She says she has nothing more to say. They've had this conversation so many times. And she asks him, what can they do to make him feel comfortable since they're not going to be able to move?
Yeah.
He tells her really nothing. Joblessness, professional and financial insecurity, home ownership are all of his problems. He will feel less alone if his wife didn't grit her teeth through him bringing up all the problems.
Yeah.
She's thriving and his life is harder. Jessica says she sees it and she would do almost anything to help him feel better. She gets that he feels alone and she is sorry for that. He says thank you, and Jessica was like, but I know that doesn't mean anything. And he said, I'm sorry, it doesn't.
I have a question, Blake. Can I ask you this question?
Sure.
If the shoe was on the other foot, if he was flourishing, based on what we know about Boris, and I know this is a prediction, but based on what we know about Boris, if the shoe was on the other foot to where she was the one basically saying, I'm drowning, I'm not happy, joblessness, all this stuff, home ownership, and he was the one that was flourishing, do you think he will be the one that will be acknowledging her feelings and trying to understand?
No, because even when she said, I think they were living in Washington or something, or Montana, and she was saying that she was doing miserable there, and he said, you were fine. He didn't even try to understand, let alone acknowledge. So, he denied her feelings.
Come on, Blair. The answer to the test is within the show.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, this just comes off as simple. Like, you're winning and I'm losing, and because I'm losing, we all gotta lose.
And I'm just like, it sounded a little bit of jealousy too.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You're living in this place that you thought was the worst place imaginable, and she's doing well. What? That's crazy. And I think that he does feel some shame and regret regarding whatever career path he took in life, and it's not where he wants it to be, and he's not able to contribute to the household that he wants. I think that with men as well, the way that not the country, but our just societal norms are, the pressure to provide and to be a leader is so great that sometimes it can bruise their egos. And I think he's dealing with a bruised ego as well.
Here's the thing.
As well, he said he's depressed too. I'm not going to like disregard that, but I think it's a lot of things at play. So
here's the thing about it. Blair gave y'all the answer to the test right there. It has been proven, based on the little information that we know, that he don't even acknowledge, understand his own wife feelings when she was in Montana and she said I wasn't happy, and he said you was doing all right. No, you was doing all right.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And then you made the decision to come to New York, or whoever made the decision. But my whole point is, even if you didn't make the decision to come to New York, you made other decisions to keep moving and moving and moving and moving, and you ended up in New York based on the decisions that you made in the past. Right? Here's the thing about it, right? There's nothing that he said one of the problems that he have is home ownership. So they have a home. They not renting. They own something to where a mortgage. So the whole idea of getting up and leaving, that's off the table.
Yeah.
And he needs to come to peace with that.
He complaining about changing filters.
Man. Filters are not hard to change, and you don't have to change them every day.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole idea that he's basically, see, the thing about Boris, because I think there may be something else internally going on with him. Even if you was to give him exactly what he wants, he wouldn't be happy with it. He wouldn't be happy with it because I think he lives his life off of comparison. I don't think he has peace within himself, so it's hard for him to have external peace. And now he's making an enemy of the life that he contributed to. This is your life.
Yeah.
Like this is your lawn. This is your green grass. And he don't even see the blessings that he have a wife who's able to contribute and probably able to take care of the household at the moment and things like that while he's struggling his way through. A wife who's willing to go to counseling. A wife who's willing to do all these things. But after a while, this monster that you don't like to be called and things like that, like, it's kind of hard to not see it in that light. Because all it sounds like to me, and you cannot say this as a therapist, and I'm happy Orna didn't say this, it just sounds like you're complaining.
But I will say that when it comes to depression and, plethora of other like mental health conditions, it warps the way that you see reality and react to it.
That's true.
And so I think with the fact that he can say that he is depressed, everything is just going to have like a tinge. If you consider like depression like a color blue, everything's going to be shaded by the color blue. No matter how green the grass is, it's going to be bluish. No matter how many great things his wife does, it's going to come across a tinge of just sad. So I think that if he can address the depression, I think all of this other stuff is huge too. But I'm thinking if he can address the depression and try to get out of that depressed state, he might actually be able to, if he's in the negatives, kind of set himself to a 0. So that way he can start seeing the reality for what it is instead of this negative perspective. So
100%. Yeah, I agree.
So Orna can see that Boris and his wife might be a little bit too fragile for this pressure cooker of therapy. She's not going to tell them to necessarily leave, but she's kind of seeing the signs that they might not come back. There is a fear of judgment across like some of the people that she's noticing, of not wanting to discuss things, and she sees it with Jessica, Nick, and Catherine. So we move on to Nick and Catherine. They're talking about how this show kind of makes things more acute because it revolves around the thoughts and opinions of other people. It's also, according to Nick, about how he shows up in life and he just can't really relax. There's this fatigue when it comes to interactions with others. He has insomnia, and apparently something happened to him that made him feel shame and lose the narrative around who he is publicly. He was more trusting, more open before that incident, and then there was this depression that he spent a lot of years trying to come out of. He only talked about it with Catherine because he was scared it would come out and affect their relationship. Orna understands the need to cope, but when the defense mechanism gets solidified, it can rob you of the human experience. He talks about how his body has been in fight or flight for 20 years, and she tells him like, I'm here fighting with you. You don't have to do this alone. And she notices that there's a lot of self-loathing when it comes to him. He struggles with sharing the story of what happened, and he does acknowledge that if I do share it, I'm just kind of afraid of what that might unlock, like what's on the other side of that. He wants to be able to tell his story confidently when he does it, but he feels like if he tells it now, he's going to start crying and just kind of tripping over his words. And that's now how he wants to share this important impactful story that happened to him. So Catherine tells him there's power in them being there together and him sharing he's not alone, and he's wondering if Catherine could tell the story for him. And that's where we end.
Here's the thing about it. Catherine does tell the story next episode, and we will review that episode. But you actually said something, Blair, in the reviewing of in the recapping of the episode with them that I didn't hear in the moment that I heard now. Right? He said that he only told Catherine because he was afraid, basically, of the consequences of her finding out on her own. Right? So automatically, his freedom is continuously taken away from him. At least that's what he feels. Right? To the point where it's like, I don't want to tell Catherine. Like, if it was up to me, I will keep it to myself. And I wonder if we go back to basically this pressure cooker that she was describing with Jessica and Boris. I wonder if it will benefit Nick and Catherine, because there is no consequence of not talking to Orna. Do you get what I'm saying? Like this is actually a time to where you actually have the free will to share what you want to share, say what you want to say, and he don't even have the reps of doing that, because he said he'd been in fight or flight for basically 2 decades. So basically the only way that he could tell the story, which he eventually doesn't tell the story himself, he kind of inputs, little pieces and pieces in the next episode. But it's like he needs to get to the point to where he can share things without feeling like there's like a weapon pointed at him. Dude, you get what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I'm like, oh, when you was reading the recap of that, I'm like, that's why it's like when he talks, it's almost as if it's like he's not talking about nothing, but he's saying a lot of words. It's almost as if
he's
it's
like constantly avoiding being direct. Like, it's always talking in circles around something and not really wanting to address it head on. And I can see why Catherine could be exhausted at times and just say, I'm gonna just spend the money and do what I want, because it's not like he's gonna say it straight anyway, which is jacked up because your partner. So my only thing with them, I personally, I find it frustrating because I am somebody who appreciates direct communication, because once I know, then I know how to maneuver.
Yeah.
If I don't know, then I mean, I'll still maneuver because if you don't tell me, I'm going to keep it pushing anyway. But it's just like, I would appreciate knowing so that I can acknowledge and be able to provide you what you need.
Yeah.
If you can't speak up and tell me what it is that you need, then you're just not going to get what you need. Closed mouths don't get fed, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, they don't.
But I see that it's a traumatic situation, and I think that there has to be a sensitivity to that. But I think that he, in some type of way or form, I don't know how Orna's going to do it, or if he needs independent therapy for it.
I think
like,
so.
He has to learn how to speak up for himself.
Yeah.
Like it's I mean, you're a grown adult person in the world with a wife and children, or a child, and you have to navigate the world. You have to speak up for yourself and your loved ones.
Yeah.
You know?
I hope he does get that confidence of speaking not only in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
But the freedom to tell your story, because even though in the next episode, because I think the next episode is strictly about them, in the next episode, while we dive into his trauma and things like that, even though it's a sad story, it is your story, and you have the power to tell it, and you have the power to basically display it and basically give whatever POV you want to give. The minute that you let someone tell your story, and I'm happy that it's someone that he trusted, as Catherine,
right.
But the minute you give someone else the power to tell your story, they can put whatever ending or whatever spin they want on it. You want to make sure that if it's your story, as bad or as good as it is, that you are able to basically, speak.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
Subscribe, like, share, comment. We'll be back with the next episode.
Bye.